How about now? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, say cherry in the chat. The sound won't be as good because I was hoping to use the other mic, but it seems it's not working. All right, yes, you can hear me. Okay, sorry about that. All right, and then here. Okay. That is interesting. It's too bad. All right. If the sound is really bad, please let me know, but we'll use the webcam microphone instead of the big dildo microphone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, but all right, let's get going with the session today. So thanks for tuning in. It's been crazy, crazy past 5 weeks. Of course, I was racing this weekend, the Cruel Jewel 100 mile, and it's a big buckle. I don't think it's actually a practical buckle. It's actually really, really heavy. And just for size comparison, this is like Canyon Ultra, so it's like twice the size at least, and definitely twice the weight. So that was crazy. But yes, the past 5 weeks, Leona Divide, Canyon Ultra, Cocodona, of course, 250, and now Cruel Jewel. And Cruel Jewel is the last one of the series, of course. But oh boy, that's a difficult course and didn't go super well for me. So I'm very excited, I guess, that it's over, but excited to share it with you. And I'm just going to give shout out to everyone in the chat. So, Wank, um, Rude for G Lore, Tony, Steve, CC, Steve, and G Lore. So, hi everyone. Thanks for tuning in. As I said, I'm going to try to do that more often. I'm going to work on the format in the future, but I feel it's a really great way to connect, especially that I've been busy lately. Making the movies takes a little bit of time, but kind of voicing that right after the race can give you a little bit more of a real insight. And you can see my eyes are still a little bit tired. And of course, in the chat, ask me anything and everything, whether it's about the race specifically, question that you might have. I think that's a great time for us to connect. To share the experience, and of course in a few weeks I'll be making the movies. Right now my priority movie wise, I have a how to run your first 50 mile that is like halfway there, so I might try to kind of wrap things over quickly, but very quickly I'm going to switch to Cocodona to 50, and then I'm going to go back to Leona Divide, Canyon, and then Cruel Jewel. So it might be a little while before I'm able to make the movie here, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through a lot of footage, how the race went, how I recovered or not recovered before moving into this race. But curious in the chat, has there been anyone in the chat that was there this weekend at Cruel Jewel? And if so, feel free to share your own experience. If not, I'm gonna tell you if you should or should not sign up for this race. But the summary is that it's a great race. I think it's a especially as far as East Coast goes. That's a really cool race. Like that's a really badass race. Was it a good race for me though? It was not. It really was not a great experience. I regret a little bit doing it, not because of the race itself, but rather because of the whole recovery. And I think that was the one too many, which you realize afterwards a little bit. But even coming in, I had a little bit of worries, and I think these worries were a little bit well funded. And yeah, I mean that's life, but that's how it is. So we're gonna move. I'm gonna play the media in the background so that you can have at least something else than my beautiful voice and my beautiful here we can move that, and my beautiful face to watch. If there is sound in the movie, I'm really sorry about that because I'm trying not to have that. So please let me know if the movie has any audio, because the point is to not have it, but it should be off right now. All right, so I'm gonna go to the question right away, and then I'm gonna start with the start. So yeah, like lack of sleep. I think training for me has been doing my PhD. People sometimes don't realize, but I do work a lot. Running is obviously not my full time job, and through work. But before that, when I was a PhD student in Sweden, and then eventually when I was working in consulting, working through the night is not something that is so foreign for me. So I've been used to that. But the reality is that I think very often when you're racing and you're sleepy or sleepwalking, it's not just a lack of sleep, but it's also a lack of energy. It's being exhausted. Sometimes it's about fueling. So what works for me when I'm really struggling on trail, first of all, 5 minute naps amazingly help a lot, kind of reset the situation. And what works even better is you stop, you drink a little bit, you eat a little bit, you close your eyes, rest for kind of 5 minutes, and I'm kind of good to go. That will work kind of, that's a duct tape solution that will work for a race that is 36 hours, 48 hours like this one. Anything beyond that, then I need actually proper sleep. And I don't know that there's a real way to train for that other than being mentally strong and knowing that, like, okay, like it kind of sucks, especially as you just wake up and you're trying to shake it off. But eventually it's just about the willingness to move even though it feels uncomfortable, and then it will get better, progressively better. Scott, we spent some time over there. That's awesome. I hope it was in the first half of the race when, well, I'm not even the first half. I hope it was in the first 10 mile when I was doing a little bit better, because I really, really struggled and I was kind of in a bad mood for, I would say 90 miles of that. And we'll go through that. So what we see right now is the start. Always exciting, a little bit nerve-wracking on the road, but they actually semi-close the road. Like the crews are not supposed to drive off the road, which is a good thing, so we can take the space. But at the same time, it's not great. And luckily, in the evening when we come back, because this is an in and out, we don't come back exactly through that, so there's less car. But yeah, how the race compared to Cocodona. Oh yeah, we're gonna go into detail how that compares to Cocodona. I think I struggled more at this one than Cocodona, unfortunately. Not that it's necessarily harder, but it's definitely different in terms of the type of grind that you're doing. Like a sleep got to me insane climb. Yeah, I mean, fish gap, it's not great. Struggle lack of sleep. Yeah, lack of sleep is definitely something that was an issue for me coming in. So, all right, let's talk about the race itself. Or more to the point, and people mentioned it already. I was coming back from Cocodona, and it was literally a week, exactly a week since I finished Cocodona. So I finished Cocodona at like 9 a.m. the Friday before, and then this Friday at noon, it's the start. And through the week, especially people close to me knew that I was complaining or whining a little bit about potential injuries and tendinitis. So the big issue that I had at Cocodona that were really slowing me down was a lot of pain in my heel and my Achilles. So it was flared up, and every step I made, my heel was kind of compressing and it was really painful. It felt like it's in the bone. And that started relatively early in the race, I would say the second day at Cocodona, and I was worried that would come back. The other issue that I have is in the front of my left leg, there's a tendon that is really inflamed. That was an issue at Cocodona, and through the week, it was a little bit painful. But coming in the race, I was really debating, should I even go to Georgia and race this, or should I call it and say, okay, I'm going to race it another year? And I gotta say, I feel I might have done the wrong decision, or maybe not for the right reason, and I regret a little bit. So I really was looking forward to this race, and this is a great race. And everything was planned already. I had my flight, I had my cars, I had everything set up, and just had to go and do it. So I think there was a bias or a sunk cost fallacy where, well, everything is set up, so I should at least go to Georgia and decide Friday if I'm gonna race. And I was actively looking for a reason to validate that this was the right decision. So Tuesday, I think, or maybe even Monday, went for a 6 mile run. It was feeling okay-ish, and I felt that was enough for me to say, okay, like, let's do it. You're good enough, good to go. Despite the fact that I was sleepy all week and falling asleep at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., which for me, that's absolutely not normal. Usually I will fall asleep closer to midnight or 1 in the morning. So even just the sleepiness was there, but also my legs were not 100%, but I felt, hey, it's good enough. I could walk the whole course at Cruel Jewel and be fine. So maybe I don't need to worry too much. But that was not a great that was not a great decision, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. And what's difficult at Cruel Jewel? So for those not familiar with this race, it's 100 mile, but really, I mean, my watch says 109, and I think officially it's 103 miles. It's an in and out, so 50 miles out and 50 miles back. Not quite exactly, because we do a little extra detour towards the end, which is extremely painful. So I think it's 49 miles out. Then we turn around, then we do a little detour, and then we finish. It's in Georgia, in the mountain, and the East Coast doesn't have the 14ers, doesn't have the big climb, the 5,000 feet climb, you know. It has 1,000 or 2,000 feet of climb each time, but it's relentless. It's all the time. Most of the footage you will see, it's either me climbing or coming down, which means that on the way back, I was climbing. Not always the steepest. Like, for example, what we see right now is decently steep, but on the downhill, that would be very runnable. And for East Coast Trail, it felt not at least for my experience, if I compare to things in Quebec or in the Northeast in New Hampshire, it felt not so technical. It's more technical. There's more roots, more rocks than you would see on the West Coast typically. But it's definitely runnable, and those gentle slope, if you have the legs for it on the downhill, you could really, really make up time. What makes this race difficult, though, is that you do have about 30,000 feet of gain. It is Georgia, so it can be really hot and super humid. The kind of humidity that is super stuffy. You want to cool down, you're sweating a lot, but the humidity is trapping you, and there's just no way to actually cool down. It makes chafing really bad because you're soaking wet. It makes eating very bad or difficult because you're just too hot. And because of these things, it makes everything super painful. It's also harder to take care of your feet because your feet get wet very quickly from sweating. And then on top of that, we had a little bit of rain, but not enough to kind of be refreshing. It was in the middle of the night for a couple of hours, got cold, and then it came back to just being totally normal. So not great. And that's really what makes this race difficult. What makes this race accessible, and I think can be a good choice. Maybe not for a first 100. I mean, it's fine to do it as a first 100, but I think it's a challenging race with 30,000 feet of gain. You really have to have solid legs. But what makes it accessible? First, you have an aid station. I would say on average every 5-ish or 6 miles, meaning that you're never on these long stretch like at Cocodona where you spend 20 miles just by yourself and you have to carry everything. In this case, it's 5 or 6 miles. You have access to everything you need. Not always your crew, not always a drop bag, but at least an aid station where you can have food, when you can eat, and these things. So I'm actually on the video, I was pointing towards where my leg is actually painful. And that's where actually we're just 13 miles in, 3 hours in. And right now you can see it. I'm walking the downhill, and that will be the name of the game for the remaining mileage, which is about 90 miles, right? I'm walking 100% walking or 95% walking, including the downhill, because every step I was making with my left feet was flaring up my tendons. And at mile 13, things were going fine-ish before, but 13 is really where things start escalating very quickly. And I really had to decide at this point, am I actually gonna drop this race and then make sure I don't get further injured, or am I gonna finish? And for me, it's a bit of a binary decision. I didn't want to say, well, I'll continue as far as I can, and then maybe at mile 60 you drop, because then you get the worst of both worlds. You aggravate an injury, and then you don't even have your finish. So I felt if I go past a certain distance, then I'm committing to going through it, unless it's horrible, horrible pain and it's very clear, the bone is sticking out. But if I'm committing to that, I'm committing to finish again. I'm definitely not going to drop at mile 98 or 90 or however that is. I'm deciding, am I dropping or not? And that's a decision I had to make fairly early. The good news is that walking, although was painful, the run was maybe a 9 or 10 out of 10 pain most of the time. Like, could barely do a few steps before just being in agony. But the walking, at least, I was able to go between 1 or 2 pain all the way to 5 or 6, and it stays in there and varied a little bit. Now we're actually entering the road segment, and that's really where it was by far the worst. That was really, really not good. The whole road segment is a segment that is mostly downhill. You can see it now. There's a gentle downhill slope on a dirt road. You're supposed to go like at 10-minute mile or 12-minute mile, especially with the fitness I usually have. That's what I would do. That segment would take me about an hour, and instead it took me probably 2 hours. You can see the pain in my face and really the doubt that I'm making the right thing. But what I had in my mind at that time is I started the race with Hoka Tecton. And I think it's the shoes that really aggravated that, because when I think back, that injury started when I used these shoes for the first time. It was much milder back then, but I think there's a relationship between the two. Maybe it's a carbon plate. Maybe my feet is not used to pushing with that, and it just creates a little bit more of tension, and that's sufficient to flare up. So my mindset when I was in that segment and the next one was, let's get to mile 25 where you have a drop bag. I had extra shoes in there. And I decided I'm going to change my shoes. I'm going to make one more push, one more aid station. And that's where I decide, am I finishing this or not? If the change of shoes didn't help at all, I felt it would be better to just pull the plug and save my season. if I felt better with the new shoes, I felt it was worth really trying for it, going for it, and then I have a full solid month before my next race, which is Tahoe 200. So Tahoe 200, I really need to be in good shape for that. It's a fast course at the beginning. It's a tough race, of course, 200-mile, but it's in 1 month. So it's giving me time to do a little bit of PT, to rest a little bit, to do some exercise, to stretch, and potentially to just reset all of these things. My heel were really painful, but I'm not as concerned about that long term. My tendon is a little bit more concerning because that's not something that I had before. But I think a month will hopefully be enough. But that's the big question right now that I have to answer starting tonight, basically. And let's look at the question a little bit. What shirt are you wearing and why full sleeve? Yeah, so the shirt I'm wearing is just a bike jersey. I think I have somewhere on my Amazon kind of affiliate link, the link to get the exact same one. It could be really any jersey shirt, but what I really like about it, and maybe you can see it, it's very porous design. So for me, it doesn't chafe this shirt, which is a big advantage. But also, it's drying relatively quickly. Even better, there's some pocket because it's a bike jersey. So on the back, there's some pocket. So if for whatever reason I don't have room for my camera, for example, I can just put it there very quickly. So it's practical also. It's also a zipper design, which is practical if I want to air out my chest a little bit. So nothing fancy. It's not one of those Satisfy shirt mud technology that costs like $200. Like this is a very cheap Amazon design, but it's doing the job. Someone asked about the long sleeve also. So these are just compression sleeves, but mostly for me, I use that when I know a race is gonna be hot. I use that 90% of the time because if it's really hot and they have ice at aid station, you can just slip some ice in the sleeve. And for me, that's the best way to cool down when you have access to ice. It's much better than on your hat. It's better than a buff itself. It's really compressing against your arm, and that's what I use and I learned at Badwater was the most efficient. Of course, if you have infinite amount of ice, the best trio would be to have a hat where you can really put a bunch of ice on your head. It's going to melt a little bit. Then you have one of these bandana, and the one from Running Rabbit is actually pretty good. At first I thought it was more of a gimmick, but you really have a good pocket in there that you can slip a lot of ice. It's going to be at the top of your back, and it's really going to help you cool down. But the strongest and most efficient for me is really the sleeve because it's really pushing the ice on your body and it's melting super fast. The same quantity of ice that I put on my sleeve compared to my hat, for example, will melt twice as fast on my sleeve. And really the difference here is that it's my body warming the water, or in other words, it's the ice cooling down my body, which is a good sign that it's working very efficiently. Recommendation for Mongolian Monster. I mean, my recommendation is to do it, but it's a race that is very much stop and go. I think you have some very steep and technical up and downhill that you will walk in both direction and be really slow on the uphill, and on the downhill you have to be very careful. But you also have a lot of dirt road and fast mileage on the rim. So first is to be careful. It can get pretty hot, so check for the weather ahead of time and prepare accordingly. Then the other one is just to be patient when it's slow mileage, to remember that there will be time for you to push harder later. So be careful in the technical, take your time, don't fall down, don't hurt yourself. And once it's on the dirt road, you really push the speed there so that you can make up time, and then that should give you plenty of time for a strong finish at Mongolian. It's a great race. It's a hard rock qualifier, so I highly actually suggest it because there's not so many hard rock qualifiers that are not lottery. So I mean, it's a race I really enjoyed. The only issue for me is I believe it's in early September. Someone can definitely call me out if I'm wrong about that, but I feel it's early September, which is kind of peak season for a lot of really cool race. Last year was Tour des Géants. This year will be a Swiss 380. So it's not that I don't want to do it again. It's just that there's other stuff that I really want to be doing. But if you have the opportunity to do it, absolutely go for it. Mason Ultra Crew Hub is saying you can't miss me in that jersey. It's actually one of the reasons why I got it originally. And you should check out the Ultra Crew Hub if you're racing and you're looking for more of the logistic side of things. It's not as glamorous as saying like, hey, I ran Cocodona, but there's something to be said about understanding where should you fly to, how can your crew support you, where can they go, and that kind of information that is often not shared. Ultra Crew Hub is a great resources for that. And one of the tip, if you're a runner and you have a crew, is to be easy to spot. So they need to see you coming in, and having this bright jersey that nobody else has makes me very easy to spot by my lovely Nora, so she can see me coming in and take the camera out and come out and be all cheerful. So I think that's something that is good to say. Instead of having kind of generic clothing, having something that makes you very recognizable. And unfortunately, the hat nowadays is a pretty popular one, so it's not going to be enough to be recognized. Stretching. Bill asked if I do a lot of stretching. Well, if my physiotherapist is here, yes, I stretch all the time, dynamic stretch. But I don't have one. I have friends that are PTs, but I should probably see one soon. I don't do enough stretching or dynamic stretch as I should, and I know that would probably help me on my Achilles pain that I have. That's one of those things. I wish I had more time to do those stretch, but I focus much more on running in my training, including speed work and long distance run. Strength training, I think, is pretty important. Rest days, and then the fourth one that is definitely missing would be dynamic stretch in general. So it is a good suggestion. I'm not claiming to have perfect training, unfortunately, and that's definitely an area that I could improve. Steve is asking a great question, like what's the reasoning between an injury pain or more fatigue pain? And that's unfortunately one of those things that you need to make the mistake a few times because there's no direct proportionality between the level of acute pain that you feel right now and how much that's gonna last. And obviously the insight is 2020, so in retrospect it's easy to say that pain was actually an injury, because the injury is something that just takes longer to resolve. When it's part of the normal fatigue, soreness of muscle, it will resolve by itself within a few days or weeks, something like that. Whereas the injury is something that can take several weeks, several months, and there's just something that is wrong with you that you need to change. But the way I often describe it is if you put an alarm on your phone, and you go to a concert and then your alarm is ringing and you're in the middle of a concert, you might or might not hear the beep, 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 beep when you're at the concert because there's so much noise around you, noise that is so much louder, and that's the pain. The noise level is the pain. And when you're racing something like that, you have pain everywhere. Like I have pain in my shoulder because I'm using my poles all the time. I have pain on my toes because I have some blisters, have chafing up my butt crack, and then I have a little bit of pain on my ankle. But the pain on my ankle is really lower actually than just chafing. Chafing is super painful. Blisters can be sometimes really painful, much more painful. Like the pain is so much higher than that little uncomfortable feeling in your ankle. But the difference then through times after the race, the blisters, the chafing, and your muscle soreness, they get better and better relatively quickly, whereas which is the high level of pain, whereas the injury, maybe the ankle was here, it was a pain of 2 or 3, but it stays pretty constant or even sometimes aggravate when you're trying to get back to training, and that's what's an injury. The issue is that if you don't know that it's an injury soon enough, then you get back to it too quickly, or during a race like that you decide to push through it because the ankle is actually not that painful. It was much more painful. My butt crack was much more painful, but it's easy to convince myself that, look, I'm gonna put some lube in the next few days and it's gonna be fine. Like that's okay. The ankle is not as painful, but is more worrisome. And with practice and doing the wrong thing a few times, that's where you learn like this one, it just doesn't feel quite right. And I have done that mistake, especially when I was a newer ultra runner. There's one injury that put me out for about 3 months. 1 month I could barely walk, then the next one I could walk but it was painful, and then the next one I could finally start to jog back again. And it was the last 10 mile of, I think, the first time I did cold water, which I believe was my second or third 100 miler. I felt something was wrong in my knee, but I decided, hey, I can still do the last 10 miles, and I pushed as hard as I could. And I even have the photo finish, kind of a few snapshots back to back to back, and you can see me finish cross the finish line and then already immediately start limping. And that was a pretty bad sign that, like, yeah, the adrenaline helped me push through that injury, but that was definitely a mistake. And in retrospect, I wish I hadn't done that, and hopefully that won't be the case after Cruel Jewel. But I do have some abnormal pain right now that is a little bit sketchy and annoying or scary. uh all right, we have a question about strength training. I'll talk to that very soon. And ultra lean, if so. Okay, two questions from Steve about strength training and the ultra lean. But first, we have Stunt Mastaflex, which says hi from Gatineau in Canada. So hey, I'm in California, but my heart is still in Canada. So nice to see you or hear from you. I don't know if you were there. Actually, we had a few Quebecois that were racing this weekend. Always nice to connect with your folks. It's East Coast, right? Like if you're on the East Coast, it's a big ass race to do. Anyway, if you look at the background at the same time as I'm talking, we passed that aid station at mile 25 not so long ago. I didn't see it myself because I was busy chatting your ass off. But yeah, here. So that's where I changed my shoes. I had a long break. I needed to poo poo also, but that's a different story. And and then I decided, okay, I'm gonna try with my good old Mafate 4, and it felt a little bit better. Not to the point where running was comfortable, but I tried jogging a little bit, and it just felt better immediately, which was a little bit reassuring. So I was happy with that, and that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna finish this race. But already 30 miles in, I don't know how to remove this up. Yeah, 30 miles in, 9 hours. Well, that will be the next aid station where we're going now. I was getting really tired, really a little bit sleepy already, kind of zoning out. And I'm sure some people have seen me and try to chat my ass off, and I'm just a little bit more like grunting, especially coming in at 8th station. And I feel so bad. So I'm sorry for anyone that was at 8th station. I just come in, I'm just kind of zombie a little bit. It was a tough race, both that pain, but also the level of energy. I always, when I come in 8th station, especially from now on, you'll see um, I was really, really depleted of energy and will to go on it. It just felt like such a grind fest, pushing through pain so slowly, going at 2.5 mile an hour, looking at how many miles I have left. At 30 miles now, like I probably have 75 miles to go. At 2.5 miles an hour, that's 30 hours. And then you calculate, it's like, man, like I still have to go more than 24 hours. There's 2 full nights that I'm gonna spend out there right now, and it really gets to you. And that was really challenging mentally. And at the same time, I kept telling myself, stupid, 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 stupid. Like, why are you here? Why didn't you pull the plug before coming in? Because it feels that once I'm committed to doing it, then I have to do it. Whereas I could have just as easily decided the week before, hey, I'm not flying, I'm staying in California, and it's too bad, and we'll never know if I could or could not have done it. And it's weird because it feels like it's almost ego racing a little bit, like, hey, I'm so tough, I'm gonna do it, which I typically don't think like that. But that was halfway that was the trip's already organized, and like, hey, like I've done 3 out of the 4 races I said I would do in 5 weeks, like, and I pretty sure I can do it. So it's kind of ego racing, which I really recommend not doing, and hopefully I will learn from my mistake. Typically, I'm better about it. I have in the past, in fact, Cruel Jewel, I was supposed to do the 100 mile 2 years ago, and I decided to pull the distance to a 50 miler because I was not feeling great from my last race, which I can't remember what it was at the time. I think it was Samo 100 mile, which was a difficult race, and I had bad water coming up. So I was really thinking, okay, let's dial it down. Let's not ego race. Like, I know I can do it, but let's not be stupid about it. And I think that's a decision that maybe I should have done on that day. Um, Ultra Crew Hub is asking, and he's done the race, and he did like at least 10 or 12 hours faster than me, Mason. If I have a drop bag at every aid station, so there's 2 aid station that you can have drop bag here, and then there's a few more where you could have a crew. I didn't have a crew, Nora was not there, didn't have a pacer, so I had my 2 drop bag, and then you pass them twice. One of them is that aid station at like 24, 25 miles, and then you see it again at 75 miles. The other drop bag is at something like mile 47 that you see again at 51. So that's basically like you see it only once when you think about it. It's not, it's not enough mileage. So you really have 3 spots where you can change things. And the way I used that is I knew it could rain a little bit. So I had extra layers, dry layers. Importantly, I had backup shoes, mostly thinking they could be wet, but also just good to have shoes sometimes, and then extra pair of socks, and then almost everything else was a nothing burger in my drop bag. But that was enough. Like changing these shoes, I don't think I would have finished the race if I had stayed with my original shoes, and changing my socks, which I did at mile 25, of course, but also I did again at mile 74, really helped me feel so much better and so much fresher. uh all right, we're gonna go up a little bit in question. We had Steve, and no, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. So the night came in super fast, and the reason for that is we start at noon, so you have about 8 hours of daytime before snap back to night. And I don't really like racing like that. I would much rather leave early in the morning. Okay, like 4 or 5 in the morning is a little too early for me, but 6 or 7, and really have the full day where you have the energy to run typically, and then you do as much mileage as you can before it's nighttime. And then when night arrives, you're so far in the race that, yeah, you're going slow, but you would be going slow anyway because of the dark, but because of how tired you are, and it feels you're almost there. Whereas now I'm just 30 miles in, it feels the race is just starting, and it's already nighttime. If I had the leg for it, I should be able to run, but in the dark it can be a little bit more sketchy. So not my favorite. Turned out to be fine for this race, and if anything, the night feels a little bit better because it was so hot during the day. But yeah, it's mentally tough to go in the night and think, okay, this is not even the last night I'm gonna be here. That's a mindset that you develop at a race like Cocodona, but that you don't necessarily expect or want for 100 mile. Like 100 mile, you do one night out, and that's it. So that was a little bit tough mentally, and still being in my head and being so negative about it. And for whatever reason, I was with a lot of people in the first 25 miles, and then eventually it just kind of dried out. I was mostly by myself, except at aid station. So that also felt a little harder than it needed, because I felt I need to be with people a little bit more for that one, especially when I was in a dark place. Um, let's go through question again. So strength training, I do have a video about that, so I recommend that you go on my channel. Hey, by the way, if you are listening to this, if you think this is helpful or it's appreciated, of course, I would really appreciate if you hit me up with a subscribe, like, leave a comment, both in the chat but also in the regular comment. That is helping my video be seen. As you know, I'm doing that, for funsies. This is not my job, but also contribution are really appreciated. I have a Patreon page, and the way I see it, look, I really want to make the sport accessible to people, but of course my tips, I believe, are helpful. I think they come from a lot of experience. I want to make them accessible and free to everyone, but if you think this is helpful, see it like a tip, like just like a little nod, like buy me a coffee or whatever. That is helping a lot. That's helping, there's camera gear that you need all the time, and little things like that, that helps the channel be sustainable. Of course, you don't have to. I understand that everyone is in different place financially, and that's the whole point, right? So thanks for everything. But don't forget to like, because we have 59 viewers, so I better have 59 like, unless it's a bad recap. Then I don't mind if you don't like my video, if it's a crappy crap. But yeah, strength training on my channel, there's I think it's probably called strength training for runner. I suggest you have a look, because I go through my basic routine. It's good to switch it up, but yes, it will be things like squatting, calf raise, I'm blanking. I'm very much blanking. Some core workout, of course. A lot is your leg, but you need to focus on your core a little bit. And doing that 30-minute, 2 times a week. It doesn't even need to be 30-minute. It's better to do probably like 3 times 20-minute than doing 2 times 30-minute. The most important is that you do it regularly, you switch it up. That's gonna very much help you, especially on a race like this one where you have so many climbs. And the thing that saved me for this race is that I was so slow on the downhill, but on the uphill, I was efficient. I was going probably at the same pace on the uphill as the downhill up until almost the end, which really helped me keep rolling and have a relatively decent time when you consider that the race was so bad for me and I was walking the whole downhill all the time. I never had the ultra lean. I don't think that we know exactly what the ultra lean is coming from. I think strength training is, of course, something that you should consider for that. But I heard some people say it might be electrolyte imbalance. I really don't know. And for those who don't know what the ultra lean is, you see videos sometimes of people that are walking towards the end of an ultra and they're kind of leading sideways or forward. And when you ask people about that had experienced that, most of the time they don't even notice that they're leaning or they're sideways. So there's something kind of wrong going on. Never happened to me, unfortunately, so don't have great tip for that. I think it's more visually impressive than actually problematic. But yeah, what they say, like, you should probably have more electrolyte, you should do probably more strength training, but there's probably not no magic pill for that. Sweet spot for recovery time. All right, so Shield is asking what's a sweet spot for recovery time between these long races. I would say that 1 week after Cocodona might not be the sweet spot. Last year, though, and it's not coming out of nowhere that I was trying that. Last year, I did something very similar schedule wise. I had Fuji 100 mile. 1 week later, I had Cocodona 250. 1 week later, I had Bryce Canyon. And Fuji and Bryce are difficult race themselves. I think probably not as hard as Cruel Jewel, but not so different. Like, they're pretty similar in terms of difficulty. So I had the same amount of time, and it just was better. And I think it's because potentially my tendonitis is potentially a small injury, so that's the big difference. For me, what feels comfortable is 3 to 4 weeks after 100 miles. Probably where I'm not 100%. I wouldn't do the best performance of my life after 3 or 4 weeks, but I barely notice it. Anything less than 3 or 4 weeks, I will notice it. 2 weeks is not enough. It's not 100% back. I will feel more muscle fatigue, and I will be tired quickly. That's sleepwalking very often, very early in races. That's when I race back to back or 2 weeks apart. That's just not enough time. And 1 week is only feasible if you don't have injuries. If you have anything that is an injury, really that's not enough time, like, to recover properly. So sweet spot, I don't know, but 1 month is probably what I would rather do. At the same time, and you've seen me on my channel, I don't care about finishing time. I care about having these adventure and having fun, which means that if it's going to be 3 weeks to have a really cool race, I'm going to do it. In this case, did I want to pull out of Cruel Jewel because I just did Cocodona? Nah, not really. Like, I wanted to be there. It was probably a mistake because the level of suffering made it a little bit unpleasant for me, but typically that's not an issue. If we look back, I did, which one was it? Canyon Ultra just before Cocodona. And in this case, like, it was just 1 week of recovery, and that was totally fine, and I appreciate both experience. So it's a case by case situation. Yep, stomach. So stomach issue on long run, Bill. How to avoid stomach issue on long run? I think it's practice. I think it's practicing and training your gut to accept the amount of carbs that you will have. Of course, the choice of food and the amount that you're taking is important. We say 200 to 300 calories per hour. A lot of that will come from carbs, but your choice needs to be adjusted to you. So you practice that in your back-to-back long run, even though you might not need to fuel on those long run. It's good to practice that, and everyone will be slightly different. Personally, after, I would say, a 10-hour, 12-hour, that's where it starts being very challenging to keep fueling at the same rhythm. And the way to solve it for me is that I'm switching from more of a carb and simple carb approach to more fat, more solid food, more hot food in general. So at the beginning, I might start more with something like energy gel, tailwind, which are great because you absorb that very quickly. In the beginning of the race, that's when you run quickly, so that's when you have to replenish calories very quickly. But as you go, your gut is just not doing so great. And then that's where I'll start having things like ramen noodle. For me, works very well. Grilled cheese, quesadilla. Something that, like, kind of doesn't fit that description, but works very well for me is Coca-Cola. Works very well at the start of a race all the way to the finish of a race. I can't really explain that because it's obviously very much just sugar, right? But I think maybe the carbonation or something makes it more easily to be tolerated. So you'll see me have Coke throughout the whole time, even past the time when gels are really just like, just the thought of eating a gel is just gross. Coke will be okay by then. But yeah, you got to practice that. And unfortunately, there are people that are much more sensitive. Nora is much more sensitive to stomach issue and puking. I'm much more sensitive to the other direction. And you will know yourself, and you will know when it's time to dial it down a little bit. Something that I think is a good tip is you almost always carry two bottles with you. And instead of having, let's say, tailwind in both bottle, it's good to have pure water in one of the bottle and then whatever else you have in the other bottle. Because when you start having nausea, drinking pure water just feels better and more refreshing. Sometimes what I will do in like Cruel Jewel, they were reconcentrating the tailwind. I guess they were doing the real recipe. Um, Sometimes it's good to dilute it so it's not as strong. People that say that they struggle with tailwind, I would really highly advise. Well, trying different flavor for sure, trying different brand for sure, but sometimes it's simply diluting it with water. And a way to do that on the run is you take one sip of water, then one sip of tailwind, and it mixes. And then when you're drinking, it's more diluted and it's easier to digest or tolerate, I would say. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the race. So right now, I just made it to Wolf Creek. Wolf Creek is the last aid station before the turnaround, which is just kind of a 2 mile in and out. It felt really good to be there. I felt like everything is downhill from there, which is not true, but it felt like okay, like my body can handle this. If I can make it to 50, I know I can make it all the way. So it felt really good to be there. And despite walking all the time, I was not, and that was surprising me. I was losing a lot of position at first, and it's not so much the position that matters, but people were passing me a lot when we were on that road around mile 13, like zoom, 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 zoom. I was like, oh my God, like I'm going so slow. There's no way I finish. But by then, by mile 50, even though I felt I was going really slow, I was going apparently at the pace of people around me because nobody would be passing me and I would not be passing anyone, which means everyone around me was struggling. And it's not that I like to see other people struggling, but more that you remember that, yeah, I have my problems right now. I am coming off Cocodona and I am all messed up, but people around me are also having their own issues. And if they can finish, then I can finish too. We're in a good position. We're way ahead of cutoff. They can finish, I can finish, and that's a little bit reassuring. Whereas, if people keep passing you throughout the race, at some point it feels like you're bleeding, and there's no stopping of that bleeding, and that's a little bit more concerning. Whereas in this case, I felt that I was kind of riding the wave of people around 40 hours finishing time. Uh, all right, let's. Oh, a few comments. Sorry. All right, all right. It's and I'm sorry. Usually my comments would be like here, but for whatever reason, oops, it's not showing it. Anyway, it would be top right, but for whatever reason, it's not working today. So yes, there's still some tweaking to do. But do any top racer complete ultras without using pacers? Um, Yeah, I mean, for sure, not every race allows for pacer. UTMB is by far the most competitive and most prestigious race in the world, and you're not allowed to have pacer. You can have a crew, but it's fairly limited. So that's definitely a thing. When you have the option to have a pacer, I would say that it is an advantage to have someone with you, especially when you're a pro and you're really by yourself out there. It's going to be helpful to have someone with you to keep you company, but also to keep the pace, to keep you on check on little things like how far is the guy behind me, where am I going. Not having to think about little things like that can be super helpful. Hopefully, none of the pros are muling or things like that, but who knows what they're doing up there. If there's a special pride to do it by yourself, I'm sure some people take pride into that. Personally, I'm happy when I'm by myself because I get to meet more people, and I'm very happy when Nara is with me because I get to spend time with her. So it's just a little bit of a different experience, but at the end of the day, your feet, your legs need to carry you the whole way, and that's not something that the pacer can change. What the pacer can change is being with you and having this experience together. So there's some races though, like Vermont and maybe Angeles Crest, where they do mention when you do solo. So no crew, no pacers. It's part of your kind of record. And I think for Vermont, there might be two different podium, but I'm not 100% sure. Joel is asking, what's a comparable race to Cruel Jewel that I've done beside elevation difference? How does it compare to Leadville? Yeah, it's very different than Leadville. I would say that this course is way harder than Leadville. Leadville is a relatively fast course, and I don't know if you've run Leadville, but Leadville to me feels like you have 40 miles that you're really pushing pace really fast. Of course, you're climbing Sugarloaf and Mini Helper, so there's some climbing, but it's really not too bad, and you can really kind of make up time. And the thing is that you have to make up time, and that's what makes Leadville tough, is that it's runnable for these 40 miles. And it's not that it's an option to run. You have to run because those cutoff are tight and they're calculated based on the fact that you are running a big chunk of that. Then you do Hope Pass, which is a lot of climbing in a short 20 miles. I think you get probably 8,000 feet. Like someone can correct me, but I think maybe 7 or 8,000 feet tall in 20 miles, which is a lot. And it's basically half of the climbing at Leadville is within these 20 miles. With the altitude, it's making it tough. And then you run to the finish or walk your way to the finish. But the tightness of the cutoff is what makes Leadville difficult in my mind, not the course itself. Whereas this race, Cruel Jewel, is basically the polar opposite. Climbing all the time, super tiring, difficult course, mostly on single track. You have to watch your footing, even though it's non-technical for an East Coast trail. It is technical, more technical than Leadville for sure. But the cutoff were pretty generous. Like I walked for 90 miles and I was never worried with cutoff, which makes it easier or more accessible. What's a race that would be comparable to that? I don't know that there's so many races that I would find super comparable. One that could be interesting is Diagonale des Fous, because it was also very hot and humid, and there was a lot of elevation gain, and cutoff in my mind were fairly generous. However, that race was super technical, super technical. So that's the biggest difference. The course was way harder because of that. Whereas this one, at least, like you could kind of zone out sometimes, and then it would be okay. Let's go down the chat lane. Digging the video, Simon. Hey, I'm glad my videos are helpful. A washed up local. Nice name. Barton, agree with having water. Great. Jerry, what's the most? So, Jared, the most difficult thing with Cruel Jewel by far is the combination of a lot of climbing nonstop, the repetitiveness of it. If you look at the footage behind me, it's green tunnel nonstop, and it's so stuffy. It just feels like it's endless purgatory in there. You're suffering, you're in pain, and for me this year in particular, I was in pain the whole time, and just seeing no progress. Like it's good that I have a watch because I can see that the mileage is moving, but otherwise, if I didn't see here that it says fish gap, I would not know where I am right now. I would not know how many miles are left, and it would just feel hopeless. So the mind gain was difficult, and the hot humid heat was terrible. Nara's asking if I'm answering the question. Nara, you're always welcome to come upstairs if you hear me, of course. Folks are always happy to finish. Just finished the 50. The climbs are no joke. Yeah, Joel, the climbs are absolutely no joke. Congrats on the 50. I mean, the Cruel Jewel 50 is closer to 58. At least the year I did, I think it was closer to 58. So it's closer to 100K, not 50 miles. So that's something to keep in mind. Do I recommend sitting down at aid station? I would recommend not sitting down if you can avoid it. Anytime you sit down, you will take more time. However, sometimes it's easier said than done, and sometimes you do need the rest on your legs. So myself, in this race, I started sitting down at aid station. Starting at mile 50, I was just taking my sweet time. But it's because I knew I had the time with the cutoff, and because my heel were so painful. There's race where I never sat down, and these are races that I was much faster. So if you can avoid it, don't sit down, do your little things, and go through a routine. I do have a video on my channel about aid station, which you can look up how to deal with aid station. But a good reminder is that before you arrive at aid station, know what you're going to do and kind of practice it in your head, because the worst thing that you can do at an aid station is not to take too much time. Like, of course, it's not great to take too much time, but the worst you can do is you forget to fill your water, or you forget your poles, or you didn't take food, or like forgetting something that major, or it's about to be the nighttime and you forget to take your headlamp or your clothing, where at some point you will have to ask yourself 1 or 2 miles out, like, am I walking back to get these things or not? And it's going to be a tough decision. So having your little routine will help with that. For me, for example, I know that when I come in an aid station, even though I really want to sit down and eat something, I will fill my bottle, empty my trash, take some food, and if it's a special aid station like before nighttime and I need a headlamp, I will get those immediately. And then afterwards I will decide, okay, what do I need to eat or drink right now, and do I sit down? But I get everything done before that so that I don't forget one of these key items. A good 100 mile for a first timer, there's a lot of them. Personally, I really like Zion 100 mile. I think it's a beautiful race, and the choice I think should be a mix between what's easy and accessible, but also something that is exciting. A race, for example, like Jackpot Ultra, which is a small loop, 2 miles loop in a park in Vegas, is very simple. It's probably the easiest thing that you can do, but also it's a we're on YouTube. It's a mind game to do that, which makes it much more challenging mentally to keep going, as opposed to being out there in Zion and then having these gorgeous views and really feeling the distance and the adventure, and you're moving out there instead of just doing small loops. So picking something that is like exciting, but also logistically that will make it a little simpler, both for yourself, but also if you have a crew and a pacer, something that they will be able to support you. Another one that I like a lot is Javelina 100 mile in Arizona. It's 20-mile loop 5 times. Custom race, a lot of energy. The fact that it's 20-mile loop is not as exciting, but it makes it much easier to crew or even to support yourself. You have your drop bag at mile 0 and mile 10, so you can have a drop bag every 10 mile and really adjust what you're doing based on that. It's a 30-hour cutoff though, so you have to keep moving, but because the course is not so hilly, then it's very manageable. The heat is really the problem with Javelina. All right, Ian, that's a legend. Nora, thank you. We have some high going on. Of course, Nora is there and she's downstairs. Nora, you're welcome here. I will open the door for you. All right, Francisco, how did your buddy handle back-to-back ultras? Yeah, I mean, Francisco, you might have missed the beginning. Usually it was fine, and I think for Cocodona, I was kind of okay coming in, but I think Cruel Jewel was the one too many, or the one that if I could change anything, I would have taken maybe a week extra to rest, because I was not doing so great. Now, luckily, I have a month to reconsider life choices. But yeah, the biggest issues were not so much muscle stiffness. I was just getting tired very quickly, very sleepy, but mostly my heel were very painful, some tendonitis in my feet. And I describe it pretty mildly, right? Like, oh, some tendonitis. Look, guys, if I'm complaining about it, it's because it was super painful. It was really, really painful. And yesterday I could barely walk at the airport. I could barely go to my plane. It was horrible. I had problem driving because when you're driving, your heel is touching the ground and pressing the pedal, and just resting my heel on the ground was painful in the car. So I had to stop because of that. So that's the level of pain that I was dealing with during the race. It's hard to convey it because when I'm just in pain and bitching, I don't film usually. But it was extremely painful. Oh my God, we have one of the views. Feast your eyes, because this is one of the rare occasion that you see the gorgeous mountain of Georgia, which are really nice, but most of the time you don't see anything. And then we're going to go back in the green tunnel, but it felt so refreshing to see that. So you really had to watch that, and you have to replay that because yeah, that's a rare sight. Most of the time it's nighttime or you have this green tunnel. So it was really exciting to see that. Recovery strategy between Cocodona and Cruel Jewel was just to complain all the time and wonder if I should be racing. Mostly it's a lot of sleep, a lot of active recovery. So whenever I could, I would go walk a little bit. Whenever I could, I would sleep more than usual and accept the fact that I'm more tired and take that extra sleep, which does impact things like my channel. I'm not able to make as much progress on the movies that I would have wanted because it's 9:30, 10. I'm in front of the computer doing some movie editing, and I just start dozing off. And normally I would just push through that, but because I wanted to recover, then the decision was, all right, it's enough for tonight. We're gonna sleep. Also, I was eating more than usual, making sure I have a lot of protein, being kind to myself. And then I did do a test run, I think Monday or Tuesday, a 6-mile run, which was to gauge how bad my body was doing, and then decided to pull the plug or not. I think I was looking for reason to race it rather than reason to not race it, which is probably the biggest mistake I did. But that's all right. Doing Javelina for my... Hey, Bar is doing Javelina first time. I hope you do have a costume for it. It's pretty important. The way I see it for Javelina, for those who don't know, it's around Halloween. You can go costume. So look, if you're a pro runner and you're going to get a golden ticket, I think it's totally acceptable that you're not wearing a costume. Otherwise, it's good to have a costume because then you have an excuse to be a little bit slower. And the costume, though, if you do race costume, should really have... The prime direction is it should not impair your running, because 100 miles is a long freaking way. And you see people with like silly costume. I'm impressed by these people. Personally, I try to keep it as simple as possible. Like I will be dressed up as Luigi, and the main part of my costume is just leaving a mustache on, but everything else is running gear. I think maybe one year when I'm gonna be famous, guys, okay? So you're gonna help me with making me famous, right? So you're gonna like this video, subscribe to my channel. But when I'm gonna be famous, I think we should all go dressed up as Simon. I'm gonna send you a link to where you can get the hat and the jersey, and then we have a bunch of Simon running Javelina 100. I think that would be fabulous. And this way, I don't need to dress up. So I think it's perfect. And it's easy costume. Obviously, it's a costume that you can run in because that's what I typically run in. So think about it. Maybe not this year, but maybe the one afterwards. Um, what did I learn about myself? Yeah, Francisco, what did I learn about myself racing so many races so close to each other? It's not the first time I do that. Oh, and by the way, the girl we were seeing, we ran a bunch together. I mean, we were going back and forth. She had energy sometimes when I didn't. Like now, she leaped me ahead, and then I'm catching up to her. But she did Tour des Gens twice, and she's probably sponsored by Speedland. So she was a great runner. It was nice to see each other at aid station, and clearly seeing in each other's eyes that like we were feeling the pain 100%. Actually, you can see her, like I'm catching up to her, but we were back and forth, I think, from mile 45 all the way to the finish. And now what you see, the people that are running uphill, yeah, that's a 50 miler. Hopefully you can tell the difference in their ways of running. But yeah, what did I learn about myself? It's not so much about how quickly I run these races. I've learned in the past that I can recover relatively quickly. I think that's one of the things I'm good at, and good at understanding my body and not pushing past the limit. I think this time, though, what I learned about myself is that I am susceptible to what I would call ego racing. I think usually I'm good. Usually I would have pulled out of this race, and I regret that I didn't have the strength, the mental strength or humility to decide that, you know, my body's not feeling 100% and not even feeling 95%. Let's just skip it. We're going to come back another time. Yes, I booked my flights already, but you know, it's better to skip it and not get injured, because it was just not a pleasant experience. So I regret that, but I do notice that I am susceptible to ego a little bit. So I'm going to have to work on that a little bit and be a little bit more humble. Nora is saying Simon dot dot dot. So I don't know what that was about, Nora. Was it that I'm inviting you upstairs? Please come upstairs. Joel, what longevity do you give for Phoenix and Okay, interesting. So we had a question about my Phoenix headlamp. I have great longevity with them. Typically, they will go through the night and then some. But with any headlamp, it really depends on the setting that you're using, right? If you want more light, then it's gonna die faster. And if it's really cold, sometimes it can drain your battery very quickly. For me, what I did for this race is I had two headlamp. I always carry two headlamp. Like you have to have your main headlamp and then a backup. If your backup is a full headlamp, that's fine, or something that can at least get you to the next aid station where you can get help. And then on top of that, I had an extra battery. So I basically had my main lamp and then two backup, like one battery and then one extra headlamp, which I didn't use any of that. And at every aid station after the night, I would switch my battery, so I didn't have problems. But when you look at races like Tour des Géants and Cocodona, then that's what I do also, is two headlamp plus an extra battery on me. And at aid station, I will drop batteries here and there. And that's one of the things I do like with the Phoenix, but it's also true for the Ultraspire Lumen, I think. Oh, I'm not sure the name, but it's the waist lamp. They use these batteries that I'm sure have a name, but they're common batteries, but they're not AA or AAA. They're very powerful batteries, but they're common. So you don't have like the pelts to buy these weird fancy batteries that you can really only use with this specific model, which is kind of a little bit annoying when you think about it, to buy a $40 battery for just this model of headlamp, and then if you have a different one, it's just not going to work out. And it's practical because I use as my backup the Ultraspire waist lamp, and it's using the same battery. So whichever of the two headlamp actually dies and not the battery, I could easily switch the batteries between both of them, and then my backup batteries is also working for that. Am I gonna write a book? I don't have any plan to do that. I think I've seen that Andy Glaze is gonna write a book. Um, so you might want to have a look at that. I don't have any plans to write a book right now, though, especially not in my language. I think if it was in French, maybe I would be more likely to put something to paper. But I just don't think my story is that exciting, honestly. Yeah, I run, and yeah, I think if anything, I had an interesting life doing my PhD abroad. You know, going in Switzerland and in Sweden, in totally foreign countries, speaking a different language, and kind of experiencing being the odd one out and having to find ways to communicate with people that don't speak your language, and just being utterly alone and confused. I remember, I know we're going on a tangent, but I remember when I was in Switzerland, like fresh off the boat, I guess we would say, but I guess it's more the plane, and trying to figure out how to get a SIM card and going to the grocery store, not being able to explain myself in German at all, and really struggling to communicate, and feeling so powerless. Like little things were so challenging the first time. Like the first time you go and you get your bus card and you need to refill it, and these things that normally in your home country, in your home language, it's done automatically, but for these things it's just so cumbersome. I think that was a really good learning experience, and it brings a lot of humility. So I think that was more exciting. My racing, I'm a mid packer. I'm walking trotting my way to Wiscott Gap right now. Like is that impressive? I don't know. Hopefully, it's inspiring people, but there's a lot of people out there that are just as interesting and have amazing stories. And that's one of the reasons why we had the podcast with Brian. I think there were so many stories worth sharing, stories that I felt were much more worthwhile than my story. That's what I loved about the podcast. I had to step down because I just didn't have the time, but they're continuing the Buckle Up podcast, so you should have a look. Amazing stories, courage, and everything. So worth listening to these stories. Uh, Oh, you have a Simon costume. Perfect. We're ready for Javelina. Hey, that's so cool. Bigfoot. Hey, do you know who's gonna be at Bigfoot 200 mile, guys? I don't know if this is a secret, but because it's an ultra sign up, I'm curious in the chat. Who do you think will be at Bigfoot 200 mile? And spoiler alert. If it wasn't a big name, I wouldn't mention it. So it's someone that you definitely have heard of, and I am surprised is gonna be at Bigfoot, and I'm curious to be racing with this person. So let's hear it. Oh, you'll be at Moab. That's great. I'm going to be at Moab, and that's going to be the end of the Triple Crown. Hopefully, I make it to Moab on the Triple Crown, so that would be absolutely amazing. I'll let the chat respond to who do you think is going to be there. I'm If you're very curious, you could even go and ultra sign up and figure that one out. But it's definitely a name that you will be, I think, surprised to see, right? Um, Someone said Andy. Keep the guess. Keep the guess. Andy is everywhere, right? Oh, Nara is a really good guess. No, Nara will not be racing Bigfoot, but those are two really good guess. I don't think Andy is actually Andrew Glaze will be there. He's gonna be at Moab though. Moab is the one that he's always struggled. Mathieu Blanchard, interesting. Maybe he's gonna be there. Oh, we have someone. We have someone in the right direction. Yes, someone knows. I'm gonna read the question a little bit more just before we go there. No, okay. Well, here we go. I don't know if Mathieu Blanchard would be there. That would be amazing. The guy lived in Montreal. I don't know if he still does, but I felt like I missed out because I am from Montreal, so I would have loved to be in the same freaking run club as Mathieu Blanchard, right? Although he would always be dropping me, but that would have been pretty cool. But no, Tony is correct. David Goggin is coming back to ultra running and is going to be at Bigfoot. If you didn't know that, I didn't know. It's someone else who pointed out to me. I was like, what? The Stay Hard guy, the Viagra sponsor, will be there. So that's actually pretty interesting. I didn't expect that because I believe he had knee surgery at some point. I thought his running career was over. But hey, he's gonna be there, so that's gonna be interesting. I think he's gonna be way faster than me though. So I'm not planning to run against him or anything like that. But it is interesting to see some of the OG. We were talking about books. I mean, obviously Goggin has two books that you can read if you're curious. Tony, that was a guess. Oh my God, you have really good guess. That is a good guess. It was spot on. So yes, Simon is bigger than Goggin. I agree with that. Team Simon, yes, yes. Well, look, guys, I think Goggin obviously has a style that is different than me and what he's preaching. I think I'm much more into listening to your body, not pushing to the extreme, and having a sustainable running career and being there for each other and more positive. But there's no denying that Goggin has also inspired hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. So in that sense, I do respect him a lot. We have different style, very different style. But hey, I'm glad to know that he's healthy enough to be racing that. I don't wish anything bad of anyone, even though I have said before, like the way Goggin has been training and racing is not healthy, and you should definitely not emulate that. Going into Rhabdo and being proud of it is not something that you should do. But I'm glad to hear that he's okay and he's able to run. So that's gonna be interesting. Adam heard he wants to do the Barkley. I mean, that post was on April Fool, by the way. To that, when I saw that post about Goggin racing the Barkley, I said that it is true and that I was gonna be pacing him. I don't think people actually believed me, but yeah, no, it's he's definitely not gonna be doing that. Don't be disappointed. I mean, who knows? Maybe he's gonna go, but realistically, no shade Tron. Like Goggin is a good runner, but he's not at the elite level as he's not the same level like we just mentioned. Mathieu Blanchard, who's way faster, but he is a badass, no question there. So all the power to him. All right, let's get back to the race a little bit. You saw in the background, I mean, me struggling and limping my way. And so that was just before Stanley Gap. I can't remember the name. I don't want to go backward to bore you, but I'm going towards Stanley Gap, and oh boy, like at that point, I was really so done with it. I was zombie. A lot of people that were helping me, and I really appreciate that. And I do want to give a big shout out to all of the volunteers that were out there, also the crew or people out there. I mean, there was a lady, Beth. Yeah, Beth was at Wiscott, I think, and she had a sign. And I'm gonna post that picture eventually, but she made it like a cardboard sign, and there was a cut in there, and it says like. Cruel Jewel running with Simon, and I took a picture with that. And I love that kind of thing. You know, I love interacting with people. I love that the crews are usually helping single runner go through. I mean, obviously we're struggling and we need help, and we really appreciate that people, instead of just looking at you suffer, will come and help you. And it's always interesting because sometimes I feel like, oh, like you're helping me because like I'm Simon from Running with Simon. Obviously, you're helping me because of that. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes like, hey, it's Simon. Like, hey, Simon, what's up? And then they help me. And then sometimes they have absolutely no clue who I am, which is always funny. It's like, oh, is that your first 100 miles? Like, well, it's not my first this month, but I really appreciate the help. So that's amazing, and I think that's really important. I think maybe I'm biased, but every time I've been on the East Coast for any race, I felt that the community is very strong and very supportive on the East Coast. I always feel welcome. Maybe it's me coming back. You know, I'm obviously Northeast, so we're a little bit colder and more. Man, I'm on YouTube. I cannot say the word I want to use, but it starts with an A and there's an H in there. It's a bad word, but we're the Northeast. We're like that a little bit. But in the Southeast and the Northeast, I mean, people have always been so supportive, and I really like that vibe. If you have not seen my long haul video, for example, it's not the most exciting race, guys. Like long haul, like I'm sorry, guys. Like the course is like eh. But hey, the people were amazing, and that is true also for Cruel Jewel, except that the course is really badass for Cruel Jewel. It's polar opposite for sure. All right. Going down the comments lane. Damn. Hey, Tony, you raced with Goggin? That is pretty cool, actually. Before he was famous, interesting. How did that go? How was he back then? I'm really curious how he is as a person. I mean, everything that I heard is not like he's not the most social, but I guess that's his persona, and I can respect that. But yeah, I'd be curious how he was before being so well known. Do I recommend the Goggin challenge before doing 100 mile? Not necessarily. I think if I had to choose between running a 50 mile and the Goggin challenge, I would rather suggest you do a 50 miler because it's in one go, and it's more fun. The Goggin challenge, what is I think helpful is kind of when you're starting to be a little bitch and you're not pushing anymore, like it's a good kick in the butt of getting up at 3 in the morning to run 4 miles. And it's not even, at least for me, it's not that it's so tiring, it's just that mentally it's taxing. Like, I don't want to go at 3 a.m. run 4 miles. This is stupid. Like, let's do it in the morning and we'll do 8 miles. But no, that's the point. Like, the point is like you wake up in the middle of the night, and that part is mimicking especially 200 miler. When you take a rest, maybe you sleep for an hour and you have to go again. It's so easy to say like, oh, I just want to sleep a little bit more, but no, you got to go now. Like you had your sleep, you go now. And I think that's what's good about the Goggin challenge. But if I had to pick one, running a 50 miles of prep is a way better thing than the Goggin challenge, because it's mimicking a lot of a problem that you'll be facing. Like if you do a 50 miler, you'll have to run a little bit through the night. You have to deal with nutrition at the 50 mile, at 40 miles, 50 mile, which is not something that you'll see in the Goggin challenge. The Goggin challenge, you prepare your food in advance, and then every time you run, then you eat something afterwards. So it's a little bit different, and I think there's so many things beyond just running that you need to learn that the 50 miler is a better challenge or preparation for that. Congratulations. Do I? So Carmen, hey Carmen, yeah, my voice, Carmen. Thank you for saying congratulations on that. Mental fog. We did not talk about that today, but it is definitely a thing, especially after a 200 miler. That's one of the things that for me lasts the longest, and I definitely still feel it right now. But the sleep deprivation, days over days over days, then it takes about a week or two to get out of that, and it's not just pure sleepiness. It's just you're you feel not as witty, not as sharp, not as smart. I get a little bit more. It's not just fog, but it's also I don't focus on as much on things. Like I will have a hard time editing movies because I need to focus on the task at hand, and then very quickly I'll get a notification from Instagram, and I'll go on Instagram. Whereas usually I'm able to focus a little bit more, but I get distracted a lot. I can't focus so much, and decision making is a little bit slower, and memory is also not as great. So I definitely feel it. I don't know that there's any solution beyond just sleeping and catching back sleep, unfortunately. Um, Courtney was a question. Oh, if you were asking if Courtney is doing Bigfoot, I don't think she is. That would be cool though. She was at Cocodona. I mean, to be fair, when a gal like Courtney is racing a race, I see her at the start. That's about it. It would have been cool though. What camera do I use? I use a GoPro Hero Black 13 nowadays. Whoops. I don't know if you can see it. Yep. And then I put a little thingy here for reducing the sound of wind. There's better camera for sure, but it's doing the job for me. It's really a trade-off between having good visibility at night, like the footage that you see right now, no editing, and you see relatively well when well, maybe now that was not a good example, but most of the clip you see relatively well when I point the camera in the right direction, and then when you just tweak it a little bit in the editing, then the image will pop out. Like what I see is raw footage that is looking pretty decent. So the 13 is decent for that. Good battery life, decent sound. I've tried an N360 cam before, and it just the quality is not as good. Battery is not as good. It's heavier, it's bulkier, but for me, it's just the extra editing of a 360 cam. The only practical thing with the 360 cam is that you capture everything all around you. So if you're not pointing the camera in the right direction, you can reframe and make it perfect. But most of the time, I know what I want to film. Like right now, I want to film the guy in front of me. I know that I'm gonna point the direction in the right direction, and I don't need to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 minute editing every single clip. Like when you're in the 3, 4, 500 clips, 2, 3, 4 minutes per clip is a lot of time. So I didn't use it again. I think it's practical for short clip, but not for long content like that. And if I would do a more documentary style movie where I'm filming someone and I'm not necessarily racing all the time, then I'm gonna take my DSLR probably also to get some pretty cool footage. And that's something that we had done for Badwater. So some of the footage was pretty strong. It was from that. And then the other tool that I would use would be a drone, which also makes for pretty cinematic shots. Problem, of course, is that, well, you got to carry it. And when you're racing, you don't really want to carry that so much. This course was so hard. Yeah, but I do stay hard. We were just talking about Gagan. I'm hard. That's what she said. But yeah, the Cruel Jewel course is just relentless. Like, I don't think, except maybe going down Weaver for those who are familiar, which is what we're seeing. Well, seeing is a big word, but I was struggling also mentally there. But you have an in and out. That's a portion that I said you only do once in this race. And it's kind of a detour where you go down to Weaver Creek and back up. That segment for me by far is the worst, but everything else is kind of blurry. Like you have some uphills and then some downhills and then some uphill, and there's nothing that stands out. It's not like Leadville where you think about Hope Pass. Like Hope Pass is where it's at, right? Whereas this one's like, where is it at? It's everywhere all the time, and at the same time nowhere anytime. Like there's no one single climb that makes it difficult. But and I don't know the number, but like the 20 climbs that you do makes it difficult. Like the relentless of that. And a race that for that felt similar but even worse was Uri 100 mile, which, as you know, is the hardest race I've ever done. You just get one climb after the other. It's never ending, but in this case, it's at altitude and super big climb, nonstop, super steep, and it's just really taxing mentally because when you finish Hope Pass, even the first time you're like, hey, I've done Hope Pass 1 out of 2 times. Like, yeah, like that's progress. Like you feel you're moving. When at Cruel Jewel you did climb number 11 out of 20 and then you're at 12, it feels like you didn't gain anything. You suffered so much, but you're not moving. So it makes it pretty difficult. All right. This is crazy. My first race couple. Oh, nice. Oh, Sunmaster, I didn't realize you would be at Bigfoot. I mean, you probably said it above, but I kind of missed it. Oh, that's pretty cool, man. Guy won that race, the 88K. Oh, okay. We're talking about different race. Cool. All right. Yeah, and I think we're gonna wrap up very soon. Like, I don't want to take too much of your time, and I really appreciate you guys being here. So I don't want to grab it forever, but I think I'm gonna skip some of the footage if it's too long. 9 minutes, not too bad. Yeah. So wildlife at night. Actually, it's interesting. I heard there were a lot of snakes during that race and that some of them were venomous. And the good news is the way I dealt with it was being totally oblivious to it. So I did not see anything bad. I think a lot of it is to gain confidence that almost anything wants to avoid you as a human. You have to stay aware and awake and know what's in front of you. Like if there's a bear, don't walk in his face. But most likely a black bear that you would have in this area will just run away. So you give them space and time to run away, and then it's a non-issue. If you're particularly worried, it feels better to be with someone else. And there are areas where it would be advisable to be with someone. Like at Ure, there was definitely a mountain lion lurking around us, but by not being by ourselves, that made it a little bit less scary because animals are less likely to attack you if you're not by yourself. We have Nora that's here to wrap things up, I suppose, but yeah, she wants to say hi. You want to say hi? I think the camera is on this one. You see here. You can say hi.
Hi.
Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of delay. Yeah, we were going through comments and we're gonna be done soon. It's hot here a little bit. It reminds me of that. Have you done Mongolian Monster? Yes, I have done Mongolian Monster 2 years ago. And actually, Nora was pacing me towards the end. That was pretty cool. School race, you can look on my channel. We actually talked a little bit before that, but a lot of ups and downs. And when it's up and down, it's super steep, super technical. But then you have a lot of super runnable segment when you're on the rim or down on the trail. So make up time when you can, and when it's super steep, you take your time and you make sure to not hurt yourself. Yeah, I saw a lot of rabbits and mouse, and there was a big ass dead rat on the road at the beginning of the race, but it was dead, so it was not too worrisome. Um, yeah, Moab 240. You know, the funny thing, Adam, is talking about, I guess, wildlife and Moab 240. The funny thing is also for me, I'm more used to a place like Cruel Jewel, and I kind of know what to expect and how to deal with things. Carmen is saying hi. Whereas a place like Moab, I feel less familiar. I don't really know what to do with a rattlesnake other than to avoid them. So I think the unknown is what is scary, and then practice makes you better about these things. Like I'm not phased when I see a black bear. I saw a black bear from pretty close, probably like I would say 15, 20 feet at Canyon Ultra. And my reaction is just like, hey, hold up. Let me take a picture first. And I don't think I had time to take a picture. I think it was, oh, she's taking the goods. It's heavy, huh?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's just so big.
It's big and heavy. Yeah. It's the buckle. Yeah, it's
like my face.
Yeah, it's really big. It's really heavy. I don't think it would actually hold your pants. I think it would bring down your pants if you wear something like that.
It's a really big buckle.
It's a really big buckle for sure. Yeah. What format do I prefer in races? And by the way, guys, we are doing on what you're seeing right now. I think it's the end of the race finally. Or we're getting there, and we're doing the final loop, which it just feels so unnecessary. On my watch, it was already saying 100 mile, and you just know it's gonna take forever because I'm going so slow. But it felt so good to be finally in a space where I feel that we're almost there and almost reaching that finish line. Like finally, there's a concrete amount of mileage which is in the single digit. Just have to push a few more hours, and we're gonna be there. So that felt absolutely great. My favorite format for races is a big ass loop because logistically it's much simpler. You leave your car at the start finish, but at the same time you never repeat anything and it feels like a big adventure. Second favorite, but pretty close to that, would be a point to point, especially when you're covering a big distance, like a point to point where you almost do a loop. I mean, you might as well do a loop, right, and then have the car. But a point to point where you start, let's say Cocodona is a point to point, and you start in the desert and you finish at Flagstaff, which is in the not alpine but pine forest, and you really feel the distance, and it's really cool. Or places where you can climb a mountain and then you can point and say, hey, we start all the way there and we're going all the way over there. That feels absolutely great. Then after that, I guess the one I would do would be a 50-mile in and out, 50 mile. It's practical. It doesn't have the same appeal as a big loop because you're repeating yourself, but it is interesting. For example, here we did the loop at the beginning of the race. At the beginning of the race, that probably took me an hour, and here we're doing it takes you 2 hours and a half, and you're thinking like, wow, like I don't remember any hill, and here it feels like it's always uphill. So it feels weird to do the same place twice and feel totally different about it. And then the least favorite would be loops, smaller loops, and the smaller the loop, the most unfavorable it is. 2 miles loop or 1 mile loop is so debilitating. It's very taxing and
Or my loop.
yeah, I mean what we did with Nora, it's really tough mentally because the adventure aspect of it, which is a big reason why I'm racing, is not there. Like you're just doing a small loop, so it's not as exciting. And the excitement is something that can really help you push through adversity. Climbing a big mountain is easier than being on the stairmaster at the gym. Like you can climb 4,000 feet in the mountain because like you're gonna reach the summit, whereas on the stairmaster it just feels so repetitive. Same thing with a treadmill. Like running on a treadmill is a little bit boring, except if you're watching my movie at the same time, because there's not the adventure aspect of it, whereas you're running on a trail, it's just so exciting. So because of that, like the loop is not my favorite. A 20-mile loop is pretty common. I think it's a good in between. Like it makes it practical, not my favorite. All right. All right, guys, I think we're almost at the finish line, and I think we're gonna have dinner soon probably. But thanks for joining. As always, really appreciate connecting with you guys. I'm gonna do that as a regular part of kind of my cycle after a race, Monday or Tuesday, so you can put it in your calendar. If I'm racing Monday or Tuesday, I'm gonna try to set it up ahead of time. I will do a live chat. If you have suggestions, please leave in the comments, not in the chat, so that I can read them later. If you appreciate or you want me to change certain things, like this time I had this big loop playing in the background, showing random footage, but also trying to say where I'm at on the course and commenting on it. That's the format I'm doing right now. It's a good in between of doing a little bit of work, but at the same time being able to produce that as soon as possible. Really appreciate it. If you have any question about training or these things, you can always drop by. If you want to support us, of course, there's the Patreon page. Really appreciate any support that you have out there. Movie-wise, Cocodona will probably be the next. Otherwise, it's going to be how to run your first 50 miles, one or the others, and then I'm going to pop them out, the several races that I did lately. And you're going to see me a lot this year racing Triple Crown. Maybe you're supporting Tahoe?
We'll see.
We'll see. Maybe she is supporting Tahoe. Peer pressure. But yes, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. I'll just read quickly the chat to make sure there's nothing else.